Why do you keep attracting the same kind of painful situations over and over again? Different faces, different places, but the same emotional wound, replaying itself like it's on some invisible loop. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's your unconscious calling you. Here's what no one tells you. The biggest block to your happiness is not the challenges life throws at you. It's the ones your own mind keeps recreating without your permission. Carl Jung had a name for this hidden architect of suffering, the unconscious trauma imprint. And until you learn how to spot it, it will quietly steer every choice you make, who you love, what you tolerate, even what you believe you deserve. So stay with me until the end of this video, because we're going to unpack how trauma hides in plain sight, the clues your unconscious leaves behind, and Jung's counterintuitive way to finally see it, so you can break the loop for good. Jung noticed something almost eerie in human behavior. People repeat the same emotional injuries across their lives, not because they enjoy the pain, but because their psyche is desperately trying to make them conscious. Think about that. Every recurring disappointment, every friendship that ends the same way, every relationship that unravels in a familiar pattern, that's not random. That's your psyche dragging an old wound back into the light, hoping you'll finally recognize it. Here's the catch. The trauma that shapes you the most is often the one you barely remember, or have never consciously acknowledged. Maybe it wasn't a single catastrophic event, but years of micro-injuries, feeling unseen, dismissed, and unworthy. These experiences get stored not as clear memories, but as emotional blueprints that guide how you respond to the world. For example, the friend who always feels left out without knowing why. The partner who panics the moment things feel too good. The high achiever who burns out over and over, yet can't stop proving themselves. They're all responding to an invisible, unprocessed pain from the past. Jung believed that trauma hides in symbols, dreams, slips of the tongue, irrational fears, even the people we're drawn to. It doesn't always show up as flashbacks or obvious triggers. Instead, it weaves itself into your habits, your emotional reactions, and your sense of identity. And here's the real trap. The trauma can feel like it's part of your personality, so you stop questioning it. And now, I'm going to show you the first step in tracking your own trauma imprint, using Jung's method of shadow work, and why facing it will feel almost like breaking a spell. So, if your trauma is hidden from you, where do you even start looking? Jung's answer was both brilliant and frustrating. You start with what annoys you the most in other people. He noticed that the qualities we most reject or judge in others often reflect parts of ourselves we've disowned. This isn't just about being negative or projecting, it's the psyche's breadcrumb trail. That co-worker who drives you crazy because they're lazy, maybe you grew up in an environment where resting was seen as weakness. That friend who's always oversharing, maybe you learned early on that expressing emotions wasn't safe, so theirs feel threatening. The intensity of your reaction is the key. The more disproportionate your feelings are to the situation, the closer you are to touching the old wound. In Jungian psychology, your shadow isn't evil. It's simply the part of you that got pushed out of sight because it wasn't acceptable in your original environment. Trauma feeds on this disconnection. When you were young, you might have learned, don't cry, so you hide sadness. Be strong, so you hide vulnerability. Don't make a scene, so you hide your truth. Over time, these hidden parts become like lost children in the basement of your psyche, and trauma is the lock on the door. Here's where people often get stuck. They try to heal without first seeing the wound. But in Jung's framework, you can't heal what you're still denying. So the first step is radical honesty. Notice your recurring emotional spikes. Try this for 1 week. Write down every time you feel an exaggerated reaction: anger, shame, panic, jealousy. Name the situation. What exactly happened? Who was involved? Ask, what does this remind me of? Not just in memory, but in feeling. you'll start seeing that these reactions don't match the present moment. They're echoes from the past, demanding your attention. Once you spot the pattern, something shifts. You realize that your reactions aren't proof you're broken. They're signals you're carrying an unresolved story. And the story isn't random. Your unconscious has been trying to get you to notice it for years. Jung believed this moment of recognition, seeing the shadow without judgment, is the turning point where the unconscious starts to work with you instead of against you. But here's the twist. Even when you spot the shadow, your mind will try to pull you back into old patterns. So now I'll talk about why your psyche actually resists healing, and how Jung's concept of complexes explains why you keep getting sucked into the same emotional traps. A complex isn't just having issues. It's an entire cluster of memories, emotions, beliefs, and bodily reactions stored around a specific wound. Think of it like a psychological landmine. You can be calm 1 second and the next, boom, your body and mind are hijacked. For example, someone criticizes your work, and suddenly you feel 12 years old, small and worthless. Your partner doesn't answer a text, and a flood of panic rushes in, even though you know they're probably busy. A friend cancels plans, and you feel abandoned, even though they've never betrayed you. That's not the present moment. That's your complex running the show. Here's the painful irony Jung pointed out. Your psyche protects these complexes, even though they cause suffering. It's because to your unconscious, they represent survival strategies. If, as a child, you learned that withdrawing kept you safe, your mind will cling to that pattern, even if, as an adult, it isolates you. If you learned that being overly pleasing prevented conflict, your psyche will keep pushing you to overgive, even if it drains you. The unconscious doesn't care about your happiness, it cares about safety. And safety, to the unconscious, often means repetition. Jung's advice wasn't to fight your complexes, but to observe them like a scientist watching an animal in the wild. The moment you realize, oh, this isn't me in the present, this is my complex talking, you've created a gap, and in that gap, you have choice. Here's a practical trick. The next time you feel that hijack moment, pause. Say in your mind, this reaction belongs to my past, not my now. Notice how your body feels, the tight chest, the shallow breathing, the heat in your face. This is your complex's fingerprint. Once you can recognize its fingerprint, you can't unsee it. That's the beginning of freedom. If you skip this awareness stage and try to heal by forcing yourself to just act differently, the unconscious will find another way to express the wound, often in ways you can't control. Jung believed that until you have a conscious relationship with your complexes, they'll keep shaping your life in ways that feel like fate. But there's still one more layer, the part most people never touch. It is Jung's most transformative insight. How your trauma is not just something to fix, but a portal to your greatest strength. Jung called this the gold in the shadow. Everything you've repressed, the parts of you that got locked away with your pain, carries life force, creativity, and authenticity. The anger you've suppressed might be the fuel for healthy boundaries. The sadness you've avoided could be the doorway to empathy and deep connection. The wound is not just the thing that hurt you. It's also where the self you lost is waiting to come back. Think of your trauma like a cave. From the outside, it looks dark, cold, and unsafe. But inside, there's a treasure you've been missing. Pieces of your identity, vitality, and freedom. The reason most people never find it is because they're afraid to go in. Jung's work wasn't about avoiding the cave, but about learning how to enter it without getting lost. This is why his approach to shadow work is as much about curiosity and compassion as it is about courage. If you've followed the steps we've covered, spotting your patterns, recognizing your shadow, catching your complexes in real time, you've already begun to loosen trauma's grip. Now, the final step is asking, what part of me did this wound hide? If you were shamed for expressing needs, maybe you reclaim the right to ask for help. If you were punished for speaking up, maybe you reclaim your voice. If you learned to be invisible to stay safe, maybe you reclaim the right to be fully seen. This isn't instant. It's a gradual homecoming. But each time you reclaim a piece, you're not just healing, you're becoming more whole. Jung believed the ultimate goal wasn't to be perfect or fixed, but to become conscious. Trauma keeps you living inside an old story. Awareness allows you to write a new one. And when you live from that place, your relationships change, your choices change, even your sense of purpose changes. If you've stayed with me this far, you've already taken the most important step. You've made the unconscious conscious. That's rare, and it's powerful. If you found value in this, share it with someone who keeps bumping into the same painful patterns. And if you want more videos that expand your mind and explore the deeper layers of psychology, consciousness, and self-discovery, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom and turn on notifications. Because the truth is, your trauma is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of the version of you that's been waiting to live.